One of the biggest problems we have in modern society is that humans don't come with a user's manual or an owner's manual. There's no specific documentation that tells us how to live our lives. Animals, they don't have the same problem. They can rely on instincts to essentially dictate their behavior and tell them what to do. But modern humans are so far removed from our natural environment that we really can't rely on instincts anymore. If we could, then we'd probably just be binge watching Netflix, eating ice cream every night, because that's what our instincts tell us feels good. In the past, we relied on religion for guidance, but most religions are so bogged down in dogma and bad human interpretation that it's not really a feasible guidance system for most people anymore. Another source of guidance is from friends, family, and society. And oftentimes it's well-meaning, but sometimes it's misguided or it can lack depth. Think about all the different opinions people will give you on how to live your life. Philosophy tries to tackle this problem as well, but most philosophy is terribly boring and so inaccessible in terms of language that most people aren't going to sit down and read a philosophical treatise. It has almost too much depth and not enough practical application. So the question is, how do we live our life? What can we use as guiding principles to get us through this world in a healthy, happy, and fulfilled manner? And that's the problem I'm trying to tackle. Making a simple and effective guidance system, a set of principles we can use to navigate the waters of life. So what's it all about? Should we pursue love, money, success, accumulate things? Happiness is just kind of a nebulous goal. Family? What do we use as a guiding set of principles? That's what I'm here to try to figure out. This is my stab at coming up with a succinct, practical philosophy that you can actually live by and let it guide your life. I'm tentatively calling it the Force of One philosophy, although I'm open to different names if you guys have suggestions. So in order to come up with some baseline living principles, we have to go back to basics, all the way back to the beginning. What are we? Well, obviously we are a functional human body, and I like to think of a living body as energy organization, or to maybe add on to that a little bit, expanding energy organization. Our body is an integrated system of molecules to cells to organs to the entire functional organism. And of course, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, but we still have to contend with this physical structure. So how do you keep a living body healthy? This is a topic that I gave a lot of deep thought to because my profession for the past 18 years has been a health and fitness coach. So thinking of any living body, whether it's plant or animal or human, I think it can basically boil down to three elements. Three things that we need in order to maintain the structure and function and health of the organism. And those three elements are action, rest, and nourishment. If you think about the balance between action and rest, we need both of these. We need movement, we need what we might call exercise in our life to put stress on the organism. That is one of the elements that's going to keep us integrated and actually make us stronger over time. But it can't be all action all the time. We need to balance that out with proper rest. Plants and animals do this naturally. With the cycle of day and night, it's pretty obvious when they should be awake and sleeping. Humans, well, we've kind of screwed that up a little bit with binge watching Netflix at night, but the principle still remains. We need a proper balance of action and rest to maintain our health. And of course, the third element, nourishment. We need to properly fuel our bodies so that we can have complete functionality. Again, we're very far removed from what's natural for a human body. We have desk jobs and junk food and all of these things that kind of short circuit our system. But if we rely on our natural inputs, we're doing a pretty good job for maintaining physical structure in terms of getting enough action, rest, and nourishment. And we need a pretty good semblance of balance between these three elements. Too much or not enough of one is going to lead to long-term disaster. Too much action, if you're always on the move, not getting enough rest, is going to break down the system. Too much rest, on the other hand, is going to lead to loss of functionality. If all you're doing is sleeping and sitting at a desk for 12 hours a day, you're going to lose strength and you're going to lose work capacity and function of the body. And if nutrition is too much, we're going to have certain problems like heart disease, or if it's not enough, we'll have other problems like starvation. So keeping these three elements in relative balance is the most important thing for maintaining the health and function of the physical body. Now, there's always going to be periods of time when these are thrown a little bit out of balance, but the key is, over a longer period of time, keeping each one in check. And you might be thinking to yourself, Mark, you're missing a lot of detail here. What kind of action or exercise do we need? What's the proper nutrition for function of the body? Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're just making a very basic outline, essentially a simplistic map. It's not going to have all the details. Just like a map that you look at to navigate around the world, it doesn't have every fire hydrant and stop sign. It would make it almost unusable. So we're simplifying, and later on, we'll take an in-depth look for each. With these three elements in balance, we move towards integration, which is good, and away from disintegration, which is bad. Essentially, that would mean death. And that's going to be an important principle to remember as we move forward. Towards integration, typically good. Towards disintegration, fractionation, typically bad. Humans are complex, incredibly complex, almost infinitely complex. So how do we make a reasonable map of the human experience? Of course, we're more than just a physical body. You could have a person who's very healthy physically, but terribly miserable in other aspects of their life. I understand. I've been there. So what other elements do we have to a human being? Well, again, we're indivisible by nature. Everything's integrated, but to make our simplistic map, we're going to pull apart different elements. We've taken a look at the physical body. Let's talk about two other bodies that we possess as humans: the emotional body and the mental body. How do we maintain and improve the health of those elements of our, human thing we got going on here? In thinking about the health of the mental body, or mental health as people refer to it nowadays, I was wondering if we could apply the same framework that we had for the physical body to our mental capacity, our mental body. What would be the equivalent of action, rest, and nourishment for our mental body? Thinking about it, here's what I came up with. Action of the mental body: problem solving. Our mind is essentially a problem-solving tool. It craves activity and problems to solve. One of the biggest things that separates us from other animals is tool making. And that's where the mind comes in. It's always looking for problems to solve. And if we can give it reasonable, worthwhile problems, essentially that keeps us content. With no problems or trivial problems, that can easily drive us towards insanity. So how do we define a worthwhile problem? Well, 50,000 years ago, our problems came out of necessity. How do you get food, provide shelter, and keep yourself and those around you safe? Now, in the modern world, there's so many more different problems. Some of them important, some of them not so much. For a healthy mental body, we need certain problems to focus on that are going to require our entire focus, capture our attention, and ideally problems that we find enjoyable to solve. And this can come in a lot of different forms. For some people, it comes through their work. It could be anything from a construction worker who likes making things, to a musician who enjoys performance, to a computer programmer whose idea of a wonderful day is just sitting at the computer and hacking away. Not everybody's going to find their job fulfilling, so having a hobby or an activity that you can get engrossed in and is going to challenge you, require your focus, and what's the word I'm looking for? Enhance your skills. That's the kind of problem that our mind craves and we like to solve. But it can't just be mental action all the time. We need mental rest as well. It's tempting to think that we would get plenty of this while we're sleeping, but a lot of times our mind is still racing as we sleep, whether we realize it or not. We're dreaming through the night, we're tossing, we're turning. There can be a lot of mental chatter going on even as we sleep. The best mental rest is through meditation. I know what you're probably thinking. I've tried meditation, I didn't like it, it was boring, it didn't work for me. It's like any skill. You wouldn't expect to sit down for the first time at the piano and start playing Beethoven concerto. I think Beethoven wrote concertos, something like that. You need to actually get into the practice and develop the skill of quieting that mental chatter. And if you have spent some time on it, you realize that it's one of the most beneficial things that you can do as a person. Taking some time to quiet the thoughts, focus on breathing, or whatever form of meditation you choose, will help you feel sharp, refreshed, and give you that balance that we need between that mental action and mental rest. The third element is a little less obvious. What would we consider mental nourishment? And what I came up with was inspiration. One of the most common elements throughout human history is the story or mythology. Why do we tell these? Well, to teach and to inspire. There's something that is universally appealing about story. Think of a well-crafted story. Could be a book, could be a movie that you really enjoy. A lot of the best ones will share the same elements, and a lot of them speak to us through metaphor. It hits us at not such a superficial level, but to the depth of our being. So the three elements that help create a healthy mental body are action, in the form of problem solving, rest, typically in the form of meditation, and nourishment in the form of story inspiration. So we have the elements of a healthy physical body and a healthy mental body. What about emotion? This one's a little trickier because emotion is kind of an energy trapped in between our physical body and our mental body. If you think of the things that generate different emotions, typically they're coming from one of those two poles. Imagine that you're in a hot car and you're really hungry and you haven't had your daily caffeine. You're feeling physically uncomfortable, and typically that manifests in your emotions. Juxtapose that with being well-fed, well-rested. Maybe you just went for a brisk walk. Your body's feeling good. Emotionally, you're going to be feeling better and more stable. On the other end of the spectrum, imagine that you got an angry email from your boss, had an argument with your significant other. That's going to cause mental turmoil, and it's going to have manifestation negatively on your emotions. So emotions are more or less sandwiched in the middle of your physical body and your mental body. This was the most challenging part for me to think about. I'm very good with the physical body. I'm pretty good with the mental body. The emotional body is a work in progress for me. Is there something that we can do to help bring balance to our emotions? I think so. In keeping with our three elements of action, rest, and nourishment, how do we apply that to the emotional body? And what do we use as a guiding principle? Well, going back to what I said earlier, moving towards integration, away from disintegration, is typically the way to go. How do we know? Towards greater integration almost always feels good. So what constitutes emotional action? I'm going to use some loaded terms here, but I think giving love, camaraderie, companionship is the action of emotion. How you relate to and connect with other people. What about, let's skip around a little bit. Let's go from action to nourishment. I think the nourishment is receiving that from other people, receiving love, receiving friendship, receiving camaraderie and companionship. So there's that balance of giving and receiving. The trickiest one that I was thinking about was, what is rest? What is emotional rest? And if we look at the physical body and the mental body, it appears that they're opposites. We have movement and sleep. For the mental body, we have problem solving and meditation, which is quieting the mind. And so I was thinking, what's the opposite of love and friendship and camaraderie? Is it dislike and hate? No, that can't be right. That just doesn't ring true. And I realized at that point that I'm not looking for an opposite, we're looking for a complement. What's complementary to those elements of love, camaraderie, and friendship? I think it's acceptance. Let me explain. The people around you, even the ones that you care about deeply, aren't always going to do things that you agree with. When they do something that you dislike, does that mean you're going to retract your compassion for them, your love and camaraderie? No, it shouldn't. So how do we handle that situation? I think acceptance is the key. The people around us, even the ones we care about the most, aren't always going to act in ways that we agree with. And when they do things that we don't like or we don't think they should do, can we handle that with acceptance, accepting them in their position where they are? That doesn't mean that we enable bad behavior. If you can imagine having a friend with a gambling addiction, we don't give them love and support and try to encourage it. We can actively try to dissuade them from that detrimental behavior and still have an understanding that they're human, they're going to make mistakes. And I think that's the key for a healthy emotional body. Having a fair balance of giving love, friendship, camaraderie, receiving the same, and accepting what we can't change. It's a simplistic framework. We have our three bodies, physical, emotional, and mental, and we have three elements for each: action, rest, and nourishment. If we move in the direction of integration and away from disintegration, we're going to have a healthier, happier, more satisfying and fulfilling life. It's not always easy to know what direction is moving towards integration. But as a general rule, it typically feels better than disintegration. Think about your physical body. If an organ isn't fully integrated, let's say it's doing its own thing, let's say growing out of control, for instance, well, that would be cancer, right? Eventually, that's going to lead to a disintegration of the body. Every cell, every organ, every system has a job to do and cooperates with the other systems. When we move toward integration of the mental body, typically we're doing something that's enjoyable, that requires a lot of our focus. Think about any time you were in the zone or in the flow of things. It could be playing music, playing a sport, reading a good book, having a good laugh with somebody. Those are things that fully integrate us with ourselves, with others, with the task that we're doing. And even with the emotional body, when are we moving towards greater integration? It's when we are with our friends, we're laughing, we're joking, we're having a good time, you're with your loved ones, in intimate environments. All of those things lead to greater integration with you and somebody else. On the other hand, what doesn't feel good? What's disintegration? It's conflict, it's argument, it's hatred. All of those things are pulling us apart, leading to less integration. Like I said at the beginning, I wanted something that's a livable, actionable philosophy, not just armchair philosophy where you're thinking about things and have no practical application. So how do we start to approach this framework in a way that we can take action and improve our lives? The first step would be to do a self-assessment. Look at these three bodies and three categories for each and assess how you're doing with them. You could do it any way you want. You could do bad, acceptable, great. You could assess them on a scale of 1 to 10. Little trick, you can't use 7. So you either have to say, I'm doing well, 8, 9, 10, or I'm doing poorly, 1 through 6. Take a look at your physical body. Are you getting ample sleep? Are you getting enough exercise and movement? Are you getting proper nutrition? Maybe not on a specific day, maybe even not on a specific week, but over the longer period of time, within a month, 3 months, a year. What about your mental health? Are you getting enough action, problem solving, things that you enjoy, whether it's at work or out of work? Or are you just scrolling through social media all day long? Are you getting enough rest, doing some meditation, some time to quiet your thoughts and decompress? And are you inspired? Do you have stories that you like? Do you have people that you admire? How's your emotional body? That's the one I'm working on the most. Are you able to give love and friendship and have connections with others and receive it back? Some people are actually not so good at receiving love and compliments and camaraderie. And how's your acceptance of things that you don't have any control over? Now, a key here is the things that you're not doing well are typically the things that you find most difficult. If you haven't been exercising or living an active life, that's going to be a really hard obstacle to overcome, but it's probably going to be the one that brings the most benefit to your physical body. With the emotional body, how are you getting along with people in general, but more specifically, the people who you don't always love to be around, the ones that irk you or drive you crazy? That's the most important element, because it's easy to get along with our friends, family, and loved ones. The real challenge, and where you get the most benefit, is getting those same elements with the people that maybe rub you the wrong way at times. And how balanced is your mental body? Do you have projects and activities that you can deeply focus on and enjoy? Do you get the proper time to quiet your mind so it's not monkey mind going crazy 24/7? And do you have places where you turn to for inspiration? I've assessed these 9 elements for myself, and what I found was that physically, that's the easy part for me. Balancing exercise, rest, and nutrition, I've been doing that for 30 plus years, no problem. Short-term issue that I've been having is with the mental body. What I've been lacking is a project to focus on, the mental action of concentrating for a long period on something. And I know that's temporary. This is just a transitional point in my life, and I'm trying to find that element. Ironically, the project I'm sinking my teeth into is creating these videos while simultaneously eliminating or cutting back on my consumption of them. So more focus on projects, less scattered focus. My long-term low score would be in the emotional body. I often tend to isolate, withdraw, revert to introversion as opposed to connecting with others. When I make an effort, it feels good, and I'm actually pretty good at it. But it takes a lot of energy for me to go out and make those connections, keep up with friends, family, and being accepting of people that I don't typically agree with. So like everybody else, I'm a work in progress. But now I feel that I have these guidelines, and it's my secret weapon to actually feeling better, more enjoyment, and more fulfillment in my life. If I look at these 9 elements and see if I'm keeping them in balance, if the answer is yes, I typically feel happy, like I'm on the right track. If the answer is no, I look to see which one is out of balance and the steps I can take to bring it back to some semblance of equilibrium. Dr. John Vervaeke has a great YouTube series called Awakening from the Meaning Crisis, and we are in the midst of a meaning crisis. There's a lot of turmoil in the world. People feel disillusioned, distracted, and a general sense of unease. So this actionable philosophical framework is my attempt to alleviate some of that discomfort. Enough about me. What do you guys think? Am I onto something here? Is this a framework that you could implement to help improve your life? Or do you think it's just complete hogwash? That's a good word, hogwash. I should use that more often. Leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. And if you like what you saw, hit that like and subscribe button. And if you hated what you saw, don't bother hitting the like, just hit subscribe so I can enrage you even more. And if you have a little extra time, check out my travel series, Ronin on the Road, where I explore the world through a philosophical and exercise-focused lens. See you guys next time.